No. Okay, it's 8:15. We'll call this meeting to order. We'll begin with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Yes, we did,
Okay,
but it will be something that Chris puts on later, but I wanted to make sure the agenda was updated to reflect it. Chris has a walkout report during his presentation, and the new agenda with that report will be uploaded after the meeting.
okay. That's good.
We had a performance review which wasn't completed at the last commission meeting, so that needs to continue.
You want an executive for performance
It
review?
could happen, I don't know the length of the meeting, right, and to people's time constraints, so it could happen today or at the next meeting, but it needs to happen still.
Okay, I would suggest the next meeting, because I actually have a hard stop at 10:30, unless we
Okay,
add
so
10
we get
minutes
that,
on.
so I don't know if that's okay, have a tentative agenda item depending on when we end. If we end early.
You can put it on there and
Okay.
just
I'll just
say we're
leave it
gonna
off
table
there.
it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll leave it on. Okay, so executive session, performance review.
So I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, moving on to the consent agenda with approval of the 5 minutes. Approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th. Approval of the minutes of the special meeting of November 19th, and approval of claims for November 26th.
Move approval of consent agenda.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, moving on to public comments. We do have some public, it looks like online. Aspen. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
I think we gotta promote them first to a
Promote 'em,
panelist. Yeah, looks like we're doing that. You should be able to.
I'm sorry. I think Zoom has got me confused with Aspen. This is Jamie Douglas.
Go ahead, Jamie.
Okay, yes. So it's been a while since I've done a comment to the PUD about broadband, but I think that in the future here, funding for broadband is going to be a lot more sporadic than it has been since the right in the heat of the pandemic, where everybody recognized how important it was to have it available. I would like to see the PUD work with local community groups to have a queue of shovel-ready projects so that when funding comes available, we're able to move quickly to make use of that. Also, I really think that the direction that should be taken is to recognize that the P in PUD is for public, and the expenditure of funds to create broadband infrastructure should be owned by the public. We shouldn't be using public money to essentially build infrastructure that then we privatize by transferring to telecom companies. I think that by holding the infrastructure as a public asset, that then we allow the telecom companies to offer services on, provides the best value for the public, as there'll be competition, lower prices, and a more incentive for providing better service. So I again, I hope that the PUD will actually act to try to work with the local groups and have those kinds of projects ready so that they can be acted on when funding is available from whatever sources they are, and that we'll take those assets and hold them as created by public funds for the public good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Anyone else? I see no hands raised.
See, Andy Douglas is there too.
Yeah, no hand though. Okay. There is a chance to speak at the end of the meeting as well. So we will move on to the general manager's report.
Thank you, Commissioner. The first thing is, we do have a professional services agreement. So if you'll recall, the state allocated about $1 million, $900,000 for the counties to help with engineering for the broadband effort for BEAD. And the share for Whatcom County works out to $37,500. Andrew has negotiated with a firm called ADP. This was negotiated with the Port of Skagit and the Port of Bellingham. He went and did a quick scan, including NOAANet and who's the third?
NOAANet, Cobb Bentley.
Cobb Finley, thank you. And then ADP, and turned out that both NOAANet and Cobb Finley were much higher than the amount that we had available, NOAANet being the highest. And that was after we went back to them and asked them to adjust it down. The ADP, it looks like they'll be close to what we have allocated. The design that we're asking them to do actually works for all submissions. It's design that's required by BEAD, whether you're doing dark fiber, lit fiber, hybrid. They're going to be able to do all of that for all 11 areas. And just I ask your approval to authorize me to go ahead and sign off on the contract, and we will get this going as early as this afternoon.
Any questions?
Yeah, we didn't get a copy of the contract to read in our packet, did we?
I think it may have been included in the revised packet.
In the
that went out,
revised.
like last
I didn't
night.
see it, I never touched it.
I never saw it.
Okay, yeah, I did not email, I will get those right now.
I'd like to review that before we,
We don't have time. If we are looking at another meeting, we have to call it tomorrow morning.
just 10 minutes during the meeting.
Yeah,
Can we come back to it then after the operations report?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay,
or under broadband, right?
yeah, we can do it under broadband.
Suggesting chair.
Yeah, yeah, that's fine, it's a broadband thing, so
Do,
any,
in that, all we're gonna get is the agreement between the PUD and ADP. We aren't gonna see the cost, comparison between the two, are we?
There were three. This is the lowest one.
Okay, but we aren't gonna see the other two.
We can quote them to you. I mean, it was, for NOAANet, it was 60,000, 65.
Yeah, I think it was a little higher than that, and then, Cobb Bentley was, or that was Cobb Bentley, and then NOAANet was $5 per VSL, ADP is $4.25 per VSL. So what you'll see is the professional services agreement, which is the same one that we just did for the archaeologist for.
Who else has used the vendor we selected?
Well, this is the one that's referred to by Petrichor. So other ports presumably have used them,
But
but
not the
but Skagit has done this, and Port of Bellingham. We've been holding meetings the last week and a half with those entities, and it's kind of a quasi-regional. Because Skagit was also looking for someone to do their engineering.
So if I remember correctly, there were approximately 1,000 broadband subscriber locations, BSLs, per area in the county. Is that approximately correct?
Yeah, there's about 10,000 total, so that's 900 to 1,000 per area, somewhere in there.
So real rough. So, and there were 11 areas, so that's 11,000 or 10,000.
Yeah.
And we're talking 75 cents a difference per BSL broadband subscriber location. So the difference was approximately $7,500 between NOAANet and ADP.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, when we're talking about, you know, looking at millions of dollars,
I should also add that no one had told us they could get to us sometime in mid-December. So they're
they're
don't-
busy.
and they don't meet our timeline at all.
Can I ask why we have, I know we were gonna move on, but
Mhm.
is this okay?
Sure,
Okay,
for just a couple more minutes.
Yeah.
We're on.
so I know that, we have until January 31st, and I'm new to this, I'll admit, I've never applied for a grant in my life, I've written a few papers in college, and that's the extent of it. So I'm just wondering why we seem to feel so rushed. I understand that an outside engineering firm might be, a impact to the timeline, but it just seems, to say that we can't do it at all if we don't have it done today. I just,
Thank you.
I'm having trouble understanding the time constraints.
So the applications are gonna be a little bit more onerous than they were for the WISBO grants. That ended up being about an 80-page application. So you've got 11 of those that we're gonna be preparing, first of all. Second of all, the bonding and the ISP conveyance letters and everything else, we need to get that done in essentially the next 6 weeks. And we've looked at the timeline, and we are up against it like right now. And virtually everything we do at this point is a go, no-go decision.
Okay, thank you. Since we have these here, I'd like to take a minute and just look real quick.
I do have three other items.
Yeah, okay, let's move to those. So you can,
Go ahead.
So, next Wednesday is the first meeting of the Citizens Action Committee for the Hydrogen Hub, and I'm a representative on that, so I'll be meeting with those folks 3 to 5 next Wednesday. We have a new contract in place with Karina Hoyer. She's gonna be reaching out to each of you next week, and kind of start with a check-in, and then we'll move on from there. And the last thing is the orientation for our new commissioner is just waiting his arrival. So I think we're good on that, and I believe the public records training and
We offered to start that after the next meeting, first week of December, and I haven't had confirmation, so if it's not then, it'll be into January.
So your current understanding of when the new commissioner will be starting is still with our next commission meeting?
Today is the certification at 10 a.m. But he will not be, he's not here to be sworn in, so, he's effectively the commissioner when it's certified today.
Oh, okay.
So
And then,
it's absent the swearing in.
Yeah,
So,
he's
and
got to
then-
be sworn in before Todd is not our commissioner.
so once the swearing in happens, at the county, then Todd is no longer a commissioner at the PUD. then?
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
And Eddie said that he would be available, I think he said December 2nd and 3rd or thereafter.
Okay, that's Monday, right?
So I don't know,
Yeah.
that's up to him. I've reached out, and
Okay.
I'm assuming he's out of town to be back at some point. And that's it for me.
okay,
Thank you.
moving on to, the operations report.
I had a item on the general report, so.
Oh, okay.
So going back to the hydrogen hub meeting, is that meeting recorded?
It's not a public meeting. It's one that's being conducted by AltaGas. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that, and it's
Yeah,
not,
I'm just curious, because, with the things that I brought up in previous meetings, just understanding more about if they were able to figure out the economic, portfolio necessary to make that project a reality. One of the things I spoke to some folks involved with walking transit in the last week. And, I know that they're being approached potentially for supply or as a customer. So I was curious if, you had learned anything on that front, and if you do learn anything out of it, please share it back at the commission.
Will, to the extent that I can. One of the conditions of being on this committee is that there will be proprietary information shared that we're not supposed to share.
Okay,
So if it falls under that category, I'll know it, and I won't be able to tell you until it becomes public.
you're not signing anything.
I have actually signed, yes.
Okay, so what's our policy on staff signing NDAs?
I don't believe we have a policy on that.
I think it's in the manager's discretion and administrative functions that are charged by statute, because if he's gonna participate in these meetings, he has to sign it. If he's not gonna participate, he's not
Yeah,
gonna
okay,
sign it.
so,
It's a condition of participation.
I'm fine with that, but the commission should know whenever staff sign NDAs. It should be a mandatory notification.
Well, we would have to write that into policy.
Yeah, and I want to
Yeah,
propose that
yeah.
to the commission. So,
So that would be, again, there's what to do and then how to do it. That would be clearly under the how, and staff would recommend against adopting that policy.
well, we can talk about it another time. Can we put that on the agenda sometime to talk about that, for a future meeting?
Sure, we would definitely wanna have our attorney weigh in. on it.
Yeah, so can you prepare an agenda item on that?
Sure, I think we just bring it up at one of the subsequent meetings. I just offer, I think this is, it's kind of a participate or not participate. We don't control whether the NDA is required or not, so.
I'm not saying anything about that. It's still the general manager's discretion. The commission should know what are the hard lines of communication that staff have, that when they talk to us, that they can't tell us about something, we need to know that. And there should be an official notification. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I was aware of this because I think it was discussed at a prior commission meeting.
No, it
I
wasn't.
haven't seen, I remember hearing it, so,
And
And none of it.
you wouldn't have heard it otherwise.
yeah.
No, not
I
sure.
I didn't hear NDA, but, I don't know.
Yeah, like, I mean, we have different corporations we work with. Like, if we have a staff person sign an agreement with a corporation, we're the public. We should know that the staff person is not able to talk about certain things. We should know
Yeah, I mean, we can certainly
Yeah.
add that as a,
It would
just
just be a
a
notification.
check mark,
It'd be a
like,
notification. It wouldn't be, permission or seeking permission.
No.
It'd just be a notification
Yes.
of, hey, here's official notification that I've signed an NDA with this company for this reason.
that. It is public information that's been done. That NDA has been entered into. The NDA itself is not subject to probably disclosure.
So probably,
Actually, it is. It'd be an official.
Yeah, so I'm just asking that for us to do our jobs, we need to know the filters that staff have on them. And one of the things that is a clear filter would be an NDA.
So there's a lot of times, while the document may be public, there's a lot of times you engage in negotiations where parties don't want to, they know that the document may be and may be binding on the NDA, but they don't want it public, that there is a negotiation going on. It could be a transaction, it could be a lot of different reasons why sometimes these stay, if you will, below the fog line and isn't brought forward until there's final action on some decision to purchase, sell, lease, whatever, some action. So there is a strategic reason why sometimes you would not have a public notification that staff is engaged in a confidential negotiation. It would be, you wouldn't pursue that unless you had some commission direction generally within the mission of the district to pursue something. But I mean, I can see scenarios where you wouldn't bring that out in a public meeting.
Maybe
As
it
long
would,
as all three commissioners get the notification.
I mean, could be an email.
Yeah,
let's revisit this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I
it's-
heard
yeah,
on
yeah.
hydrogen, I
Yeah.
think there was a newspaper article that BP is no longer pursuing their green
that
hydrogen.
was a
That's
couple months ago,
correct,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, it finally hit the newspaper.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, was that all for the general manager's report? Moving on to the operations report. Is that Kurt?
it should be. Hi,
Hi,
Kurt.
Kurt.
Morning, Commissioners, morning, John. Just a
Morning.
couple quick things. So I talked to you a couple weeks ago about getting some new pumps or getting a new pump at plant 1. That's our intake 5.
and that pump, as of late last week, is fully operational. I mean, it's not a matter of just having a crane on site and setting a new pump. It has to be wired up, it has to be tested, it has to be commissioned, and that plant 1 intake 5 pump is now fully operational. And also here at plant 2, we had a maintenance activity where we cleaned the clear wells. The clear well is basically the last stop in our process before it leaves our facilities. Here at plant 2, as you're aware, it was completely renovated in about 2013. So this is the first time that we were down in that clear well since then, and I'm happy to report that everything looks great down there. Of course, there was some sediment of less than a foot, but we're talking 10 years. And so that was cleaned out, all the concrete and all the facilities look pretty good underneath there. So, this is one of those spots that we never get to see unless we go through one of these major maintenance activities. So when we open up a can of worms, so to speak, when we see that everything looks fine, it's always a happy result. So those are the 2 things I'd like to report today.
Thank you. Any questions? No, nothing? Okay, thanks, Kurt.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move into old business and we will talk about this action item for the agreement for professional services. I do want to say that before we launch into broadband, because we've already discussed it for 2 hours at the last meeting, and I hope that we all took advantage of the week that we've had in between to reach out to Andrew or Chris and get more information. We don't have that kind of time today. I think most of us probably have already made decisions about where we're going with that, so just keep that in mind. I will have to play timekeeper if necessary. Okay.
I was wondering, would it make sense to add the other items under old business first, and that way we know how much time we have for?
If you'd like, yeah, we can start with an adjudication update and we can circle back to
Since it's the most
broadband,
time,
if
yeah.
that's fine with everyone else, okay.
Not a lot to report, just some goings on behind the scenes. We do have a December 3rd court hearing coming up where Ecologies who has now filed their motion. They have filed a motion that seeks to have the return of the summons May 1st, 2026. They have made some modifications to the claim form, which we have no issues with. So we expect the court to order Ecology to issue the summons. Ecology has said they will likely do their mass mailing sometime in late January, early February. That has to go through Department of Enterprise Services to get all the printing and getting all the mailing done for 10,000 plus certified mails. So it's going to take a bit. So that's what we anticipate. So things are going on there. Also, you'll recall that we've had comments to the watershed management team about the Utah State study. We expressed our concerns. We potentially tried to express our concerns so we didn't face a waiver of objections to the Saturna report and the Utah State study and the extrapolations. We've said we don't have consensus. We don't agree with the language that was drafted for the cover statements, and we asked to just note our objections for the record and move on. We did a simple letter to Becky Peterson to that effect. The city.
You say we, who are you speaking for?
PD.
Just the PD. Okay, because I want to understand.
So I'm going to go through this.
Yeah, thank you.
So we had a letter that we sent to Becky, and Becky Peterson, who is the consultant that shares this watershed management team. That letter was put in the record and also was read the note at the September meeting. And from our perspective, we weren't going to make any further comments about that, having expressed our objections, concerns, and asked to move on. The city sent a letter out in mid-October. It was a more detailed, pointed letter of their concerns. We chose not to go that path, to go to the kind of real detailed technical. We stayed at a higher level, felt that was sufficient. That letter, I have a copy for you if you'd like, that letter from mid-October. And then last week, Lummi Business Council sent a response to the city. I would say that I do not agree. History does not reflect accurately on what the Lummi Business Council letter says when you go through the documents and
Have you ever
records.
talked to
I
them?
have that too. And so their characterization of the consensus statement from 2006 is inaccurate in my view. But be that as it may, I think from our perspective, we're just gonna go forward and say, we don't have consensus. We don't think we should put a report out that doesn't have consensus. We think we should move on to other items. So with that, I'm gonna pass out both of these letters.
What was the public letter?
That's what I'm doing in the open session.
Okay, yeah.
There's, pass those down if you want.
Only one copy there?
No.
No, he's got.
I got both.
These both.
Thank you.
You need a copy?
I have copies for you. So you do it. So that's, this will come to the management.
We can read.
This will come to the management team, and what Chris and I have discussed is that Chris will say, we don't have consensus. We don't think it's worth debating whether we have consensus anymore. We're gonna be spending our time talking about things that happened 20 years ago. Didn't have, we think we should move on and focus our efforts on other items. Simple, short, sweet.
So I talked to Gary Stoiber yesterday afternoon, and I suggested to Gary, because he was struggling with how to word the whole thing, he's going back and forth with county staff on what to do with the wording of it, and I said, look, just put a cover sheet on it that says we contracted with Sabrina to look at extrapolating the Utah state model, attached is the report, did not receive consensus at the management team, sincerely. And that's it, just real simple, non-confrontational, we didn't achieve consensus and it's done. And Gary liked that, he wrote down the wording, and I think that may be the county's suggestion for the cover letter on the Saturn report.
What are the implications?
I'm sorry?
What are the implications?
I think if you read the Lummi letter, they go aggressively at the city. I think they end up saying we want to work on other things, which is what we've said. I think the implications for us is we've made the position that the extrapolations and assumptions buried in there that lead to what in-stream flow and travel treaty rates might arguably be. We do not have a waiver position. We don't risk waiver. So from a legal position, we think we're fine, and the rest of the issues might be political, but I don't think we can control that. We've tried to manage that to have at least the amount of blowback politically as we can.
And have they found funding for extending their model?
Not through Wire One.
Well, yeah, that will be challenging because there's not consensus, but, they have sources for federal funding.
They do, and I don't know if they're pursuing.
And do we have sources for funding for our concurrent effort?
We are in fact using it out of the budget dollars that we have for the adjudication. That's a big part of what's in the adjudication funding is all of the efforts that we've got around legal and engineering studies and everything else.
Okay, so in our budget that we're going to be reapproving soon, there's actually budget for the, developing
I think that
Lighter
discussion
model?
should be held in executive session.
The fact that it's in the budget, there's work for legal, engineering, consulting in preparation adjudication, that's in the budget. We get into the details of what that is. We should have that discussion in executive session.
okay.
Sounds good.
But to answer your question, we have expressed this issue with the Lummi directly, privately for months, over a year, I'd say.
Nope, it's 2 years.
2 years when we, and I think we tried to do that delicately without, a big heavy stick level. And so we position that as best we can from the political perspective of the PUD.
And this study that the PUD is pursuing, looking at, that's gonna have benefits for the general public.
Let's discuss that in executive
That-
session.
Okay, sorry.
So
That's being
I,
done in preparation of litigation.
Yeah.
after reading these letters, if we have questions, we can reach out to you and Chris directly. Okay.
It's fine doing this, another agenda item, for
Yeah.
future meeting. There's 2 items on your plate here, okay?
Um,
You know,
It may be next year. You
Fine,
can get your
yeah.
schedule.
I mean,
Yeah, that's fine. Great. Okay, let's do a geothermal update.
So I think, if I may, there's only one update, and that's, Andrew's been in constant contact with the NUCSAC, trying to find out when they're gonna have the joint tribal, elected official meeting, and the latest that we've got is it'll be sometime next year, probably in the April to May timeframe.
Great, thank you. Okay, strategic plan update. We all should have received an email. Was that last night?
I
from
sent
you?
an email yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
And
And I'm
I
in
think I
agreement.
discussed a couple of you. I happened to run into Todd, had a conversation with Commissioner Smiley yesterday and last week with you. And I just had an observation,
Mhm.
maybe it's the benefit of being remote, that I thought you needed to have an external, strategic planning consultant with its background in public
Yeah.
utilities to drive this. And I think it helped the four of you, push this through. I think that, there was a lot of happy versus glad, discussions that you were bogged down in and
Yeah.
that didn't get to the meat of what you needed to be doing in a strategic plan, what you're trying to accomplish, of having some guidance and action plans
Yes.
for
Yeah,
a district that's in transition. So that was my observation that I wanted to share with you.
I think that's great. I think we should probably get somebody to help move that along. And I do want to say there was a lot of discussion between happy versus glad, but it was disappointing and frustrating probably for the other people as well, that we can't seem to coalesce behind an idea of who we are and where we're going, which is really.
I think you were very close
important.
to that, but you got hung, rather than focusing on what you were close on, you were focused on happy versus glad,
Yeah.
rather what we were kind of coalescing around. So that was
Yeah.
my observation. My other component, what I recommend is you ask the general manager to bring back 2, 3, 4, firms to select that you would recommend to you.
so yeah, regarding all that, I just want to say a few things. First is, I recognize that broadband hijacked our meeting.
It did. Mhm.
And let's put some context. There's that. Today's Todd's last meeting.
Mhm.
So like, I'm thinking of back of my mind, well, we've got a new commissioner,
Mhm.
like, and shouldn't that new commissioner be involved in the process?
You bet, yeah.
Chris and I prepared outlines, for the process, which there was significant overlap in. So there's good building blocks, but also some challenges.
Mhm.
I'm not at all closed to, consultants. Of course, Karina did some work in that regard to support us. I think I'd like to, definitely, get some new names and have a reset discussion on the strategic plan. Kind of like, because we've got a new commissioner. Right, I don't think the work we've done and the conversation is for naught.
No, I think it's great. I think it was a good conversation. Sometimes disagreements.
Right, we should
Yeah.
give
Yeah.
the new commissioner Eddie
You
some
bet.
leeway and then maybe, have us, if it makes sense. Have a strategic planning meeting, whenever, do we have anyone scheduled?
Mhm.
When is that?
I don't know offhand, but I know we had talked about at least one more special meeting in December.
Yeah.
You talked
And I
about
don't-
adding
yeah.
on to the December 17th, which was gonna be a short claims vouchers meeting. You talked about adding that.
Oh, okay.
Well,
Yeah,
we're gonna have to add some, actually I defer to Annette. Do we still need time on the 17th for, bond discussion or anything?
No, that's moved to the 1st of January meeting.
Okay, so yeah, then the intent would be to have a relatively short, 17th meeting, unless you want to extend it for strategic
I
planning.
think that's a great idea.
Okay,
Extending it, don't you?
okay.
Okay, so
I learned the holiday
The,
one, but okay.
Yeah,
Let's just make sure Eddie can make it. though.
I'll bring you.
Yeah, we shouldn't do it without Eddie present. Obviously.
all right, but regardless of that, I would say that, what you would want to do is direct me to go out and find a slate of candidate firms for strategic planning, bring that back to you guys.
Yes, please do that. Does Wapuda have anybody that they use for?
They do,
strategic
I've already
planning?
asked them,
Okay,
and they do, ESS does, GES also does, and.
These
they-
are names of firms?
Yes, and, oh gosh. this outfit out of Colorado. I can't remember the name of it now. It'll come back to me after the meeting, but I know they do as well.
Yeah, great, okay,
So, and
and
they're-
these
and they're-
people
they're
specialize in
utility
utility, thank you.
Yeah, that's all
Utilities,
they
great,
are.
because we will definitely want that.
Yeah, and then of course, there's, the bigs, they all do strategic planning and,
Mhm.
you'll pay $500,000 to $1 million for a whole process and they'll bring a flotilla of people in. And so you can go big, but these are right-sized utility people.
One of the things that John put in his email, I did notice is, how much our organization is evolving.
Yes.
So what's different from a typical utility is that the environment is evolving, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And the utility has to adapt to evolving technology and climate and things like that. What's different about our utility is our mission is evolving, our vision is evolving. And so that's what makes it, also, something that needs to be a little bit adaptive in flavor, and maybe not utility-ish in some ways is what I'm trying to.
Within constraints.
Yeah,
With
well, I mean, that goes to that aspirational versus operational, I think,
Right.
a little bit too,
Yeah.
so, and we know where I.
We're not a typical utility. is what I'm trying to get at. Yeah.
Sure, okay, so that's probably good for strategic plan update. You will return to us with, some firms that do strategic.
Yep.
Great,
Post haste.
okay, perfect. So I think before we get into the final draft budget, we should probably do this broadband. Cause the draft budget will also take some time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we really need to focus on it.
Yes, I know, that's, yeah. Broadband,
So I guess the broad update is that we've been holding meetings, Andrew really has been holding meetings, I've been on a couple of them. With Port of Bellingham and Port of Skagit, we've got a path forward that includes putting together packages, however you guys want to submit them. We can figure that out. But common to all of that is the contract that you see before you have to do the engineering before you can submit for any of the grants regardless of what's there. And it all ends up being the same. So, first of all, I'm looking for your approval for this. I will tell you that this is being shared with you out of an abundance of willingness to share. This does not require commission action. I did not have to bring it to you. I could have simply signed it and done it. I chose not to do that. So this is one where you're already in the weeds, you're in the how, not in the what, because this satisfies the what.
When you say this, which document are you referring to?
Yes.
the
That's one in your hand.
agreement,
It's within his delegated authority.
Yeah.
right, what is it because of the dollar amount, is that?
Yeah,
right?
it's a professional services contract. I forget the exact amount, but I can go up to $100,000, it's $37,000.
Thank you for bringing it to us, though.
Yeah, it was out of an
Yeah.
abundance of wanting to share, not necessarily wanting to go and wordsmith the whole thing.
No, I just had one question now that I've had a chance to look at it. If you were to oversimplify and state the difference in the deliverables per BSL, right? I'm just wondering, what more do the other people do in their tasks that justifies more per BSL? Do they do additional work?
So.
Or are they coming to do exactly the
Until
same?
when you bid these things out or do quotations, you don't know what their cost structures are, you don't know any of that.
Mhm.
What you know is the dollar they share with you. So anything beyond that on my part would be speculation.
But you put a list of needs, we need this, and this
Yeah,
done,
and
yes,
Andrew
and
did.
that's what they respond to in there, but yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you to both of you. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for, letting the commission understand more. Maybe I missed it along the way. I didn't realize that there was a cost associated for applying for the grant.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't pick that up. That wasn't really,
None of this stuff is free.
and that makes me a little bit sad and a little bit frustrated and wary. So I appreciate
Well,
that.
but, that being said, the state allocated money for public agencies to help them defray some of those upfront costs, which is what this is.
I get it.
Does this meet that, but I'm sorry for you, Todd.
Not quite.
Okay, so
So
we will,
it's close and, we're working with the board to, make us whole. So, yes.
And I appreciate the you know, the more you can understand something, the more you can have, empathy for the situation that, people find themselves in or have to, how they have to justify or utilize, public resources. So I just want to say I appreciate that. And, I am ready to move approval of the professional services agreement with ADP.
Just
You have more questions?
I just want to think, make sure.
Yeah.
We can have discussion after the motion.
Yeah, I'll second the motion.
Okay, discussion.
Sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to understand if there's anything else you can help me understand the why the bids are so different.
They are.
I don't think they're that different. Honestly, 75 cents per BSL, when you look at the fact that NOAANet is, I mean, they're a little more of a public agency, right?
Mhm.
Like, so typically there are some higher costs associated with the higher agency, but in the big scheme of things, whether it's 10,000 or 11,000
I keep
broadband
forgetting,
subscriber
Some
locations,
extent, no one.
we're only talking about $8,000. And that's not a huge,
Yeah.
to me, that's not that big of a swing.
Right, and also, Chris, would you agree that no one is almost disqualified because they don't meet, didn't we put
The
any
timelines.
time, yeah, so we shouldn't even be talking about all that.
Well, but again, you know, to let you guys know, that Andrew really turned over a lot of rocks to get this done right. And,
Yeah.
we were disappointed with the bid from Cobb Finley, I'll tell you that right up front. I was hoping they were gonna come in around 25 grand and just steal the work. That would have been ideal. They know our area, they know us, they know the port, they know Skagit, but they didn't.
Okay. Yeah, I've got no issues.
Maybe they just don't have time, so they bid high.
I don't know. Again, I expect.
That happens all the time, right? They
Yeah.
do garbage bids.
I've got no issues.
Yeah. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
One piece of paper, I don't have to read anymore.
Yes, I got a huge old stack of them. So I guess the big question on broadband though is how we move forward with the BEAD application.
Mhm.
So 2 questions. That would be first. And then independent of the BEAD application, how do we move forward with the Point Roberts project?
Right. Does anybody wanna jump in? Again, I'm gonna be timekeeper a little bit because we don't have 2 hours to discuss it, so.
Before you do, one thing I thought is if you do look at the Lummi letter, and I thought I'd share with you, what we submitted.
Oh,
Just so
yeah.
you have that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Would you say that essentially we have 3 options? We go with the suggestion of staff that we partner with the port to get some of the projects that we had pointed out finished. And the second would be that we just take a hands-off approach, the port puts in for all 11 and we don't participate. And then the third would be that we have Andrew pursue a grant application with multiple proposals that is most likely not going to be beneficial to us.
I would say we got 2 choices,
Okay,
not 3. So the one choice would be to partner with the port, let the port be the managing entity for the IRUs, and then we would go through and in all 11 areas, we would be offering well, in that case, it'd be a lit fiber, but it wouldn't really matter. Because the IRU would have the third party own everything, which is why lit fiber doesn't matter. And we would end up doing the back office, getting the applications ready, getting all that stuff through to award, and then it would transition over to the port to manage to perpetuity, whatever perpetuity means in this case. So that's the one option. The other option would be for us to continue the way that we've been going, which would be for the port to do some of the areas, however they're gonna do it, and we'll support them. Us to do all of the other areas, and in those areas, we would submit a dark fiber hybrid combination, but not a lit fiber. And then if we're successful, it would be a contract that would look like what we have with WISBO today. So it'd be publicly owned to perpetuity, so those are, as I see it, the two options.
What are the chances that if we put in the second option, that we would secure that funding?
Near 0 to 0.
Near 0 to 0, so not super good
No,
options, okay?
Not a
And
good
which option saves us the $3.5 million that we have from
well,
WISBO?
now that's a different issue.
Okay.
So let's talk about BEAD first.
Yeah.
And we got those two different paths to go with BEAD. And staff recommendation is that we manage with the port to set up port IRUs as the offer for BEAD. And to the extent that we're successful and get those areas, then that moves off and
If I-
we execute.
Just a little
Yeah,
bit of
go ahead.
structuring, as we're just getting started on this conversation. Two things I wanted to bring up. At our last meeting, the commission unanimously made a recommendation on public ownership of public assets. I'm totally open to revisiting that. I'm just saying that's where we left it.
That's actually not where we left it. Todd actually came out and said that directly. Jamie came out and said, no, go to the port. And you said you needed more information, we're gonna defer. So we did not actually have a resolution. And that's why we were coming back today to have this discussion.
Yeah, I mean,
What's
I did, no, that's true. I wanted to come back and revisit this after we received more information. I do believe that public assets should be retained by the public. I think most people believe that. I also think that the port is a public entity. It's troubling, I think, to anyone that at the end of 25 years, they could, turn over this asset. But there's no guarantee that that will happen. Is that correct? There's no
No,
guarantee?
it's reversed. Yeah.
It's reversed.
It will be owned by the, private entity
I see,
and they can
okay.
extend back to the port.
So it's
Immediate.
never a public asset.
That is correct.
It's
And
never a public asset.
We hand them
to
any
be
check.
completely fair, I absolutely agree with everything you say.
Mhm,
There's no doubt in my mind about that. The dilemma is that's not what's funded.
mhm.
And if you attempt to force the public ownership model on a non-public ownership notice of funding opportunity, you're just not gonna succeed.
Mhm.
And you end up completely
So let
on
me
the
try
outside.
stab at this again. At our last commission meeting, we had a split decision. All of us supported public ownership of public assets, but despite that, you were still unsure about which pathway to pursue, and Todd
Yes.
explicitly stated we wanted public ownership to be retained. Okay, the second point I wanted to pin down is that at the last meeting, I was under the impression that Point Roberts is a decision that could wait another week or two.
That's why I'm trying to separate this out.
Yeah, I'm
Let's
just
talk about
making
you
sure.
first.
Yeah, so today we should make the priority this, I just wanted to make sure of
Yes,
these things.
But it can't wait forever, because we are spending engineering dollars now, and then sometime next year, we will transition to actually installing assets that could become immediately stranded assets.
Okay,
We don't wanna go there.
I don't wanna go there. I mean.
That's the ultimate waste of public money.
So one of these, so, and if I can
frame it.
wax emotional about some of this, one of the things that bothers me about this conversation is that, BEAD is actually pretty upfront about who they are, right? They're like equity access, right? That's what they exist for. That's probably, I'm making an assumption here, but that's probably why it's easier for ISPs to secure this money, because you have to lure the ISPs into like providing access, right? Nobody wants to go to rural areas and put in dollars to serve 5 people or 15 people.
Well, let's not get too hung up on it, because the actual funding comes under the Inflation Reduction Act.
Sure.
So naming of these things doesn't necessarily accurately reflect the
Well,
underlying action. So
yeah, but-
In BEAD, the purpose behind BEAD was nationwide to funnel money to the private ISPs.
Right.
That's really what they're
Got
trying to do.
it, yeah, but I think equity is if you bear with me, I think equity is a big part of the conversation here. Because if I go to Bellingham, where everybody has internet already, and I say, hey, knock their door, do you want the PUD to provide your internet? And they say, it's a choice for them, right? They can have Comcast, or they can say, maybe they say PUD. If you knock on somebody's door in Point Roberts, they don't have a choice. They don't have a choice. They have to take whoever is going to provide it to them. And so I just want to say that yes, I agree, public funding, public assets should stay public, and when, you know, the rubber meets the road, we need to make decisions for the public that are in their best interest. And we don't get to be parental about how we do that. We don't get to say, I know what's best for you. What's best for you is what I believe is what's best for you. We need to do what's best for the greater good of our community. I mean, even looking up at, you know, what do you want the commission to be? Create infrastructure to allow everyone to do a little better. So anyway, that's what equity is a big piece of this conversation. And that's why I believe that we should, partner with a port to deploy fiber. And I don't think that my other commissioners agree with me on that, and that's fine. I'm allowed to be a dissenting voice.
So I'm just, how do you connect equity with, the port model? I just want to understand.
I think that the port can actually get grant funding, whereas we won't get that grant funding, and then we will not be able to complete our projects. We asked, and these projects are the people that don't have other options. I mean, that's the point, right? Is that they don't have other options. Comcast isn't knocking on their door saying, hey, I would love to serve you. And so when you don't have options, you get desperate. You know, when you don't have options, you would take anything. I would rather be involved in the conversation. I would rather us be involved than waste time submitting a grant application that we know has zero, you know, almost 0% outcome. I've been a grant writer for a lot of years, taking contracts, and I can tell you how frustrating it is to tell someone, you know, I know these funders, I know who they like, I know their admin teams, they are not going to fund your grant. And those people telling me, you know what, I want to do it anyway, because I think that, you know, this would be good. I think that we're a good fit. Me wasting hours and hours and hours, sure, it's paid for, but also like it's pretty depressing work, right? When you know it's going to be a bad outcome and it affects your outcome rate. So anyway, and then not, you know, it doesn't get funded. That's pretty depressing. So I would
So-
not be in favor.
I'd like to talk about, two things, and I could, remember, I knocked 5,000 votes. I had 1,000 conversations on broadband.
And I had conversations in my district, which is where we're talking.
I'm
about.
saying, I'm talking in Blaine, I knocked doors in Blaine, I knocked doors in Point Roberts, I knocked doors in Bellingham, I knocked doors in Ferndale. I'm just being clear, and that's this year.
Mhm.
Okay, so in the conversation, when we talk about equity and access, they're separate things. You need both, you can't have one without the other. But the approach to get equity and access is by providing options, and open access provides options. In the ports IRU, the open access is one that is challenging because the private sector actually owns the access.
Yeah, I read the IRU.
So the competition becomes very much challenged, particularly because they own the lit hardware as well. So, you know, functional competition is a challenge. The second thing I wanted to bring up as a fact, I'm not getting to conclusions. I think we're maybe jumping ahead a little bit, going with kind of what we think should happen. I want to talk a little bit, still get the facts right. The other thing that's really important is to recognize that when we applied in the last round, where I think most people believe that the rules are different, I recall conversations at the PUD about the different proposals and for Whatcom County, and that they were all, we didn't know who was going to win. The port didn't win their applications with the IRU model, with an ISP partner, and we won with ownership. So now we have
One of three. So we had 3 projects submitted, 2 did not win.
Since that time, the, leadership at the broadband office has changed. And I would say more pro-public than the previous leadership. We have, the people that, our staff knows a lot. And there's other people that know a lot about this, and there's a clear difference of opinion in what PUD should do, and every PUD is unique, our PUD is absolutely unique as it relates to this solicitation. There's PUDs pursuing the public ownership, lit fiber, public, and unfortunately, I can't even get that discussion on the table here. Public owned lit fiber with no one as a partner. Now, unfortunately, because we haven't had support from our organization on the subject, it's a little late now to get.
Well, that's, yeah, it's part of the
We missed the
problem.
boat, but it wasn't missed because the world did that to us, we did that to us, we missed the boat on the non lit fiber pathway. So I recognize now it's pretty much off the table, almost impossible to pursue. So my job is to deal with reality, even though I'm unhappy with history. And I'm looking at many PUDs, almost all, without exception, pursuing public ownership. And I think that for us to make a statement like we have no chance is very superlative. I can say that there's rational reasons why dark fiber is less likely. But to say no chance, I can't believe anyone would make that kind of statement. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's too strong to say that, yes, there's reasons why we should have this port approach. That's a different story. That's what I'm saying right now. And I want to hear from everybody on the facts of the matter before we move on to how we should proceed.
Well, so just fact of the matter though is the reason that we believe we would not receive funding is because the cost of is just too high. Our cost.
The total score that we would obtain would not be sufficient to clear the hurdles. Part of that is cost.
So we have the scoring rubric. We know how we're gonna score. So when we say, you know, let's get away from 0. Let's just say we have an extremely low chance. I mean, that's because we've done the math.
Very low chance.
Yeah,
Very low chance.
we've done the math.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And if anybody had a batting average of 33% or 0.333, that's not a bad batting average. So if we got 1 for 3 in our last grant round, Andrew has been said to be an amazing individual and who's working hard for us, one of the best in the state. And if we were to pursue a publicly owned model, we wouldn't be prohibiting the port from pursuing their privately owned option, public-private partnership. What jumped out at me in reading the IRU, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the port pays the POGA zone, pays the private company for their right of use. The port pays them money for their right of use. So-
What's the numbers on
Hold
that?
on.
Yeah.
I mean, it was millions, so, and I think it was a one-time fee anyhow. So here we have a potential where, if we were to go the public-private partnership, we would be facilitating the transfer of public dollars to a private entity to build infrastructure, and then accessing or using public dollars to pay to access that. Am I wrong, Chris?
Well, in a sense, no, and in a sense, yes. So the IRU, what that does is it was a mechanism that allowed the port to use the money that they would get from the state grant to pay down the capital to build the infrastructure. And so that was the money that flowed to the third party. It was essentially paying them to install the fiber. And then, you know, they would go ahead and cover the port's administrative costs for the duration of the thing on a monthly. So it wasn't any out of pocket per se from the port, but it definitely was a transfer of public funds to underwrite the capital, which has been the intent all along. And the WISBO grant though really was different. I mean, we were competitive on that. And, you know, we missed, gosh, the Glacier one was right below the cut line.
Yeah.
I think it was the next project to be funded in the state. It would have been, you know, 2 out of 3. But there just wasn't enough money.
So,
But that was a different
Yes.
grant, different
I fully-
environment.
Fully understand that.
so I just want to make sure, because Todd, you're raising a really important, are you saying that the way that this, the port model, okay, we just want to, I think you answered, I just want to double check because it's obviously a big thing. The model that we're talking about, the IRU model that the staff is recommending, right? That's what staff is recommending. With the port for 11 project areas. In that approach, the port will, as far as cash flow, will receive money from the federal government that it'll use to pay vendors. And then the ISP partner will transfer money to the port on a per address, per pass basis. Is that correct?
Yes. And the way that is calculated is it's just to reimburse the port for their actual cost of administration during the IRU. So you've got to have an accountant sit there every month and say, how many passes do you have? And if the only cost you've got is the person involved in that billing, it's really, really small. And that billing is intended to allow the ISP to make the port or whoever the recipient of the IRU is, to make them whole in their administrative costs. So, you know, if all you've got is these minor administrative costs, then that's all that gets transferred.
One more question. The hardware for lighting the fiber, is that in the application of the port to the federal government? Or is the private sector responsible for paying for the lit fiber?
I don't know.
We would include those costs into the application. And then we would get 2% indirect costs to cover what Chris talking.
I'm just,
So
well, that's doing better. So, okay, we are in our application, if we pursued this pathway of the IRU pathway, the application would give the vendors enough money to buy the first round of hardware. After that, the ISP would be responsible for replacement of hardware. Is that correct?
that's correct. Both the lit stuff and the fiber itself.
Okay, let me understand then. So there's, Todd, I just want to make sure we get this right. There's a flow of money from the federal government to kick off, to build a project
It underwrites the capital.
that goes through the port and then goes to the vendors. And then there's a second stream of money that goes from the ISP to the port.
So was that in the IRU that we got sent?
I believe so.
Cause I didn't,
Well, it wouldn't have spelled out all of the different cost elements.
I think that we have an opportunity to apply for broadband and fiber that is publicly owned. And I believe that we have an obligation to the public to put that in. And we don't know if the port will put in with that, or we don't know who else will put in. So we have the opportunity to put in for publicly owned fiber. And if somebody else wants to go with privately owned fiber, that's their opportunity. But what I saw out of the ILA, the whereas clauses talked about public ownership. It mentioned public ownership in that interlocal agreement between us and the port in multiple whereas clauses. And those are the reason that you do something. So I'm still a hard, I believe in public ownership of the assets. Especially if they're paid for or when they're paid for with public dollars. I believe we have an obligation to try to put that forward. It's not costing us a huge amount of money. We have grant funding that's offsetting most of the engineering costs. So my, position is unchanged on that.
Before you guys are both done, there's a few more things I'm still trying to figure out, okay? And we're just pinning them down after multiple meetings. So let's just be clear that this is important work that we're doing in discussing the facts of the matter. Okay, so in the, ownership, in the, dark fiber model that, we did with, Point Roberts. And that, which is the other option. So what I'm trying to do here, guys, is do something that I wish we would have been presented months and months ago, is a menu. Option A and option B. Here are the pluses of option A, here's the pluses of option B. Commission, you give us direction of which way you'd like to go. I'm building that out of very limited information, an inability to get meetings, by the way, and an ambition, and pack, that information in the packets, that was extremely limited. And that only after multiple requests we're getting. But even that's not, for me, enough to, so it's happening here in the meeting. Why is it happening here in the meeting? So that's the question to ask.
Yeah.
You said meetings with Andrew, I didn't get it.
Yeah, well,
I
I've emailed him, returned emails but some of this is
No, but
not.
I've asked for meetings.
Oh, okay, well, some of this is just that the NOFO just dropped, right? I mean, it's not like we didn't
It didn't
have,
change that much.
you don't think it changed?
I think that, that to characterize that staff knew what we know today months ago is just false. This has been an evolving understanding for all of us. And I have done my darndest to keep you guys informed. You are beginning to make me believe that I should have not kept you informed and simply presented, well, we're at the end of time, here's the option.
If you consider that one paragraph in that memo 2 months ago, information, that's, we would be, I extremely disagree. I couldn't make a statement that where I disagree more with something the general manager said than that one paragraph was enough information for me to make a decision between the model that we were on and the model you're proposing. It is insufficient, but let's get back to, we got option A and option B.
Even then, I didn't understand to the extent that I do today. I mean, it definitely is evolving. Although I would say that, I'm even more convinced that that is the right answer, but be that as it may, having brought to you guys the choice, we just need you to make a choice and
Yeah,
tell us
right,
which way to go, and we're gonna move on.
I'm addressing the chair's concern about moving the conversation, so I want to stick to the option A, option B. There's a few more things I want to talk about option B, which is the port option, IRU option. There's potential that revenue from a option B that comes from the ISP, and goes to the port, could produce something like a digital equity fund. And it's a crazy idea, discussed for the first time with Chris yesterday in our check-in. And why I'm bringing this up is that there's a potential to,
There's a potential public benefit.
the potential public benefit.
Yes.
For example, it's 25 years, $20 over 25 years per pass could provide a lot of digital equity. And let me be clear about something. I have enough information, I've attended enough briefings to know that BEAD says equity, but it hasn't done very much on equity. And this isn't me speaking, this is speaking to state legislators. This is speaking to the broadband office, and I haven't spoken to Senator Cantwell and Representative Larson about this, but I absolutely could. And I don't think they disagree with me. I think the fact of the matter is that the E word is still an undiscovered country. And if there's a way, and I'm not saying that makes me want to go for beef, but it makes it more attractive to me. If we can put a stake in the ground. See, the ISPs that we're working with love relative to the PUD model. They prefer, I should say, they don't love, I'm not gonna say. I can understand why they prefer the RU model. I understand it. This was more for them. So if there's more for you, you gotta give us something. And ACP has gone away. That's the Federal Affordable Connectivity Program. And you said, knock on doors in Bellingham. I knocked on doors in Bellingham with fiber out front of their house. But they don't have it. Why? Because they can't afford it. Why? Because we keep increasing property taxes. Well, why? Because, you know, So I'm not saying I agree with path B as being the preferred pathway, but it is something that for me would be a minimum to consider if we're ever gonna pursue. So just doing the pass-through and what's in it for the public being, oh, you'll get access, but access, we know access isn't enough. They need to have it affordable. Now the point, the whole argument of real public open access, and real public open access is not, I withheld this kind of a statement, but now I know enough to be able to say that to me, real public open access is public ownership of the dark fiber and the lightning hardware. Then it really is the actually walks up and, okay, we'll send data. So it's a lot less of a hurdle. There's still hurdles, but it's a less of a hurdle. So the reason that delivers affordability is because the public really is overseeing it. We have affordability clauses. We keep our costs low. And so as an alternative to that, something like a county AACP program is just another subsidy. And I've gone on my soapbox about public subsidy of the private sector many times in this commission over 6 years. And what I'm proposing for option B to make it sweeter is essentially that.
Well, I love that. And that's,
But I don't
that's
know,
doable,
I mean, it's
right?
in disagreement with another point that I've made, which is I don't like public subsidy of the private sector. But at least it gives the,
But if we
some-
can receive public benefit from that, if we can receive money to fund equity, why would we not do that?
because eventually that will run out. Eventually,
Eventually,
yeah,
yeah, 25 years
yeah.
from now.
And we'll, sorry, go ahead, Chris. And they just still decide, I'm sorry, one more thing. They still decide the number that you buy down from with your equity payment. Right?
Go ahead, Chris.
So I think one of the fundamental misunderstandings that's happening right now is the difference between a rate and a tax. And a rate is something that you charge to recover your costs. And whether you're talking about our dark fiber model with Wisbo, where we're looking at $20 a month, or a rate that is negotiated through an IRU, it's meant to recover costs. And for us, the $20 was barely sufficient to build a reserve so that we could replace the fiber at the end of its life. So we wouldn't need to do any other rate increase other than that in order to keep the asset alive. So that's where the dark fiber was able to break even. In the IRU, Gina was negotiating with the ISPs, and I think if you're sitting across the table, you would understand that, hey, you want to charge me $12 a month, what's that for? And Gina was producing, well, here's what we have to do, and here's, how that cost breaks down and escalates, and they had agreed that that was reasonable. Whether or not a third party would agree that, oh yeah, we're just gonna add a certain amount to that so you can put it in a slush bucket to use to buy down rates for people, they might agree to that, they might not. The point is that's a negotiated outcome.
Or we could use it to build more fiber.
The point is it's a negotiated outcome. You cannot dictate that. There's another party involved. And at some point, the party can push back from the table and just say no. And then, you're left with no agreement. And you have no, what is it called, a BATNA. There's no, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. At that point, you have nothing. And, so that is your BATNA, whatever you can negotiate with that third party. So, just be aware that you guys can have all these great ideas and figure all of this out. And then, so that's the what. And then the how is you would tell staff to go negotiate. And then staff would bring that back to you. And it may not look like what you sent them out with. So just, there's an issue with the process. And
I'm saddened a little bit that there's been a communication breakdown. I think that what would have helped along the way, and I realize I came in 6 months ago and was here for a hot second and I'm leaving now. But some of these agreements, like the ILA and the IRU, being provided, maybe they need to be in a folder that the people can be added to, so that people have an understanding of what the framework of any agreements are or optionalities are moving forward. That said, I'm ready to support a publicly owned infrastructure. So
I have one
because
more piece of data.
because if frogs had wings, right?
Mhm.
If frogs had wings, if we could get something, I'm ready for us to provide the publicly owned option. And if the port and a private entity or a private entity without the port want to put in and they can come in cheaper and get that money, at least we tried for the publicly owned option.
So I have an option 3 that I want to pursue, but I need one more piece of data. And that is regarding the original Port PUD study, which we co-funded in 2018, 2019, which talked about the importance of helping to create a backbone, fiber backbone, redundant
The
backbone.
mid-mile.
What's that?
The mid-mile.
Mid-mile, thank you. Is that easier with the IRU model? I would say, I imagine not, because with the IRU model, we don't own the backbone. So I'm thinking that immunes itself more to public ownership. So, please clarify that.
so I think you're starting from the wrong assumption.
Okay,
The grants don't fund mid-mile, period. So it's kind of irrelevant whether you're looking at an IRU, public ownership, private ownership, it's just not, the grants don't go there. They're not at all interested in mid-mile.
well,
If you have mid-mile, it's accidental.
in my last conversation with Gina, there was an accidental mid-mile in 3 project areas.
And the port is gonna continue to pursue that.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is that those 3 project areas for B would fund mid-mile. And if the hardware is not owned by the port, it's not mid-mile, is it?
Well, it's open access mid-mile for the duration of the IRU. Because the port's gonna have some strands that they'll dedicate for the mid-mile. That is the plan.
Ah. So it's dedicated. How can they dedicate the use of it? How can the ISP agree to dedicated use?
Remember, in the IRU, what it has is, about half the fiber is owned and operated by the ISP. The other half of the fiber is owned by the ISP and operated by the port for the duration of the IRU. And that fiber that the port is going to operate but not own for the duration of the IRU was the path that Gina had, and Andrew helped her do the routes and, get the whole thing set up. It wouldn't necessarily be publicly owned mid-mile forever, but at least got
There wouldn't be.
the start of
public
the
owned at all. It'd be publicly operated for.
publicly operating, yeah, pardon me. But it would get, all of the ring we needed except for the piece down Highway 9. And then there was a piece from 9 back to the, C Street Colo. So it was, piece-wise, we were starting to get it. And then we were gonna get a piece of that on the Glacier project, weren't we? Isn't that part of it too? So there were parts of it that all fit together.
So what we're saying is that for those 3 project areas, what staff is recommending, are you abandoning that? Or are you planning to, would you?
No, that's why those 3 areas were selected by the board.
I understand, but Port's no longer, we're helping them do all of these. And my question is, again, staff's recommendation is to, and I call it option B, is all 11 project areas being applied for by the port and us supporting them. That's what staff, you guys proposing to
That's
us.
correct.
In that proposal, are you retaining the port's plan to do mid-mile?
To the extent that they win those 3 project areas, yes. If they
Well,
don't win the
either way, you
project
don't.
areas, you got gaps in the fiber map.
Right,
So what we don't control here is that an additional third party, private enterprise, could come in and apply for these and beat them, right?
They
So
will.
we, A, only if they apply, and B, we're prejudging an outcome that we don't control the outcome of.
Well, we do know that they will in some areas because they
They
said
told
so.
us.
Yes, they will.
is there a similar benefit in
And
the
people
other?
never bluff or say that they're gonna do things in business and then change.
Well, these people have a vested interest.
No, these people have done exactly what
Yeah.
Todd said, just to be clear. This is
It's both things are true.
So, is there in the other 8 project areas, similar opportunities for public operation for 25 years of a certain number of strands for public benefit under open access?
So I can answer that question directly. And then the answer will be out there in public. You want me to answer the question?
Yes,
It would be for the duration of the IRU. And, I gotta leave it at that. It would be the duration of the IRU.
And we don't know, we can't make any guess as to what happens after.
no, I understand that, but,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm ready to make a proposal.
Sure.
That the commission consider 2 options. Option A is the historical option the PUD has pursued. And option B is 25-year IRU, $20 per pass, or the best we can get. I recognize you're gonna have to negotiate.
And you recognize that the duration may not be 25.
Yeah, both of those numbers are potentially negotiated, but we're gonna have to you're gonna have to bring those back to us for approval anyway.
Well, only if the IRU vests here, otherwise it goes to the Port Commission for approval, not here.
Right, okay. So, that option B being 20 years, 20 recommended from the Port PD Commission.
Can I pause for a second?
Yeah,
John, could we do an IRU where we never take possession of the asset and just flow through like the port does?
I think we could. I haven't looked at that specific issue, but I think we could. We are essentially releasing back. We're accepting grant funds and we are leasing back the 6 or 20 or whatever strands of fiber. For that name. We don't have ownership. It's within our wholesale right for telecommunication services. So just sitting here off the cuff, I think we could find a pathway to it. The statutes in this are very similar to the ports.
option B being 25, 20, and reserving, what's the percentage that's being reserved for mid-mile percentage of the fibers?
Thought it was one less than half the bundle.
I believe that's correct. I think it might be different in the North London IRU because they're 2 different
Yeah,
IRUs.
I'm looking at
But yeah,
I'm looking at one that's 49% of the total fiber strands along the Grand Tour network in the service area, and those are
These are
the
recommendations,
other
not 25, 20, and 25% of the fiber being reserved.
So the problem with the model that you wanna go with is that we just put our negotiating tactics on the table out in public in front of everybody. And
Which is
that,
why I asked if you wanted me to answer the question.
Which is why I asked this gentleman over here, if we could have this conversation in executive
Yeah.
session.
It's still not
So-
a executive session.
no, so, you know, again, I appreciate where you're going. I'm supporting public ownership. And sometimes you're gonna strike out, and that's okay. You gotta at least go up to the plate.
Yeah, again, I agree with you, public ownership is best when it's when it's an actual option, and I know that you believe that we have a chance here, and I don't believe that we have a chance here with the rubric presented. And I just hate the idea of throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Hold on, nobody's preventing the port from putting in for this with whatever private company. Nobody's preventing a private company from putting in for this. And if they do, and they get it, then there will be service there. If they don't put in for it, or they don't have the resources to do it, then guess who gets that? The people that put in for it with public ownership and nobody came in.
But, can I just ask, I made a suggestion that we consider these two option A's and B's. I want to first know, is this, it's almost like a motion. Between this option A and option B, is this an acceptable decision for the commission to be reviewing and making a decision on today? That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying which one do you prefer. I'm saying, is this a suitable option A and option B for us to make a final decision on today?
Are you saying you're asking the commissioner?
I'm kind of asking for a second on that motion to consider this option A and option B.
I'm not gonna give you that second
Okay.
because I don't want to go with that option.
Let me understand the motion.
Mhm.
So you're moving, so option A is submitting for this unit
Mhm.
from the PUD submitting.
PUD
Having
submitting
Andrew write
with a
out,
dark fiber model.
and option B is the IRU, and it sounds like maybe we can be more proactive in that.
I see pluses and minuses to both.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say I prefer one. or the
yeah,
other.
yeah, yeah. Well, no, I mean, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Those, that's.
But what you're saying,
And option A is also only for 8, right? Because we
Mhm.
can't say anything. We've already made a gentleman's agreement between us and the port that we're gonna pursue 8 and they're gonna pursue 3.
Right,
So, port's not interested in those 8.
right.
So it's those, so with option A, it's 8. And then we'll let the port do what the port, and we'll support them, but we'll let the port do what they wanna do for the remaining 3.
the gentleman's agreement was under a framework of an ILA that is references and done for under the auspices and framework of public ownership. That's what informed and oversaw all of this agreement in past history. The whereas clauses, while they don't initiate action, they show intent. And so I believe that the framework of our agreement is under public ownership
With the port, yeah.
with the.
But, and that happened right up front when we got into business, yeah.
And so, look, we're not gonna prevent a private corporation from coming in and doing this cheaper if they want and snapping up the public dollars. We're not
They're
gonna,
not gonna get the match.
we're not gonna prevent the, port from putting in with a ISP to a private ISP to do this work. What we're saying is, hey, there's a third option. Maybe it's a little more expensive. Maybe we won't get it. Maybe we will. But at least we tried for that third option. And I can't tell you how many times you show up, I showed up to a fire or a medical emergency where I
Or an interview
figured,
at the PUD,
I'm sorry,
or an interview at the PUD.
or an interview at the PUD, where I figured, you know what? I'm gonna try. So this is me trying.
Try, I respect that.
Yeah, I respect.
I also, I worry most about the public benefit. We talk about public ownership a lot, and we're a public utility, but I worry most about what's in the best interest of the public, what's the best public benefit, and I think the greatest public benefit is for us to be involved. I just can't put a stamp of approval on something that is not, it's not. I don't see a good outcome here. I don't see.
You mean with option A?
With option A, I don't, like, we risk our ability to be involved in any way. I don't wanna move forward with that.
So we are really discussing option A and option B. You don't agree with, you don't like option B and you don't like option A. So, so I'm just wanted to frame the conversation. So I
We
guess
can
I'm,
arm wrestle over it.
yeah,
But the thing that you brought forward under your option B was attempting to wring more out of the contract. And we don't control that. We don't know how that's
we
gonna
could have, the
turn.
PUD does option B.
Right, we could have PUD as option B.
If we do the IRU, we could do the contract.
You're
But
also,
you've got another party at the table.
you've got another party at the table.
Yeah.
And are you gonna say you're willing to
But
walk away?
we don't need commission, we don't need the port commission approval as well.
Once we initiate option B, if they don't wanna play, or they say, here's our hard stop, we're not doing that, we're only doing this.
Then they get no state matching, then they get no, then they
Yeah.
they don't have a public partner. So there is a negative for them.
Yeah,
So, I mean, it is a possibility that we could pursue one or the other option, and we hit a roadblock and we switch, we could reconsider and go to the other option. Is that even realistic, Crystal, or am I talking crazy because there's not enough time to do that?
Well, once you sign a contract with the state on your approach, you'd have to negotiate with the state to change the approach.
You can do that, by the way.
You can do
I've done
that.
it.
They're reasonable people. It just takes time.
Which direction is easier? Going from B to A or A to B?
I can't speak for the state bureaucrats.
But you can revise.
I mean, I think I would have liked option C, which is 100% public, but staff totally rejects what I did, but I just want to say public ownership, I have to say one last time, public ownership of the dark and lit fiber with no net, but I know that's no longer realistic option.
yes.
That's what I would
Yeah,
prefer.
I agree.
And I gotta be clear, staff doesn't oppose public ownership. What we've said all along is that if you have various levels of public ownership, you're gonna have to have various levels of subsidy to make it work. And that'll be forever. And what we settled on with the dark fiber model and the WISBO grant format was something that didn't require subsidy in the future, that paid for itself. And that's why staff recommended that's a good way to go. All of these other models will require subsidy.
May I horse trade with you for a minute, Jamie?
You know, I like horses.
So, you say you support option B. Do you support option B with 25, 20, 25? As I stated, or do you, support option B? I'm recognizing that we're giving staff the ability to negotiate, but as our indications of what we prefer.
For what we prefer, I prefer it in the way that you know, had stated.
It provides a
But
revenue
yeah.
support for
Yes,
ongoing growth
yes.
of the broadband function in
Yeah.
our organization.
Yeah,
And then one last thing is PUD doing the application. Not the port.
yeah, I mean, are we able to do that?
I believe so.
Yeah,
The only question was, could we do the IRU with private ownership through us? And John's initial preliminary read on that is, yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably doable.
yeah,
And that wasn't something I considered, because if it was ending up in anybody owning it other than us, then it was gonna be going over the port, and we'll let them handle it through their IRU process that they already have developed.
but we can do it.
Okay. May we make that as the last decision of the day?
Yes.
Can I sleep on that for the rest of the meeting? I won't fall asleep.
As the
We
last
can do the
decision of the day.
Yeah.
Oh, so we will
you
do
wanna
that.
move on to the budget and then come back to this.
I need this to digest.
Just for
Joseph,
clarification for when we do the minutes, so because the IRU negotiations will be up in the air until such time as we know what we are able to do in those, can we, for purposes,
If you want to table, I can move to table this.
for purposes of the minutes, just vote on a direction you wish to head and then,
No, I'll move to table this
Until the end of the meeting.
until the end of the meeting.
Yeah,
okay.
We'll withdraw the motion.
yeah.
Okay, I'll withdraw that. motion.
okay,
And then you bring it back later.
Sure.
And we'll do it
And
after,
actually, I don't think we ever had a motion on the table.
You didn't get a second, so.
You didn't
motion
get a
failed.
second.
Yeah.
so we'll do it at
There's
the
no
end of.
pending motion.
No, right, no motion whatsoever, right, understood.
Okay. Final draft budget presentation. I'm guessing we have a net.
We do. Good morning. I won't make this, we will go through it in detail, but I will try and make this perhaps a little speedier. So please let me know if you have any questions. So this is our revised budget. As you know, on October 22nd, we presented the draft. We had meetings with our customers. We also incorporated the October actuals into it. And then some changes inside. So this is the resulting budget that I'm going to present to you. Now, when I wanted to start off with the good news, so what this is a picture of our Ferndale substation. And as you know, we have been working on this for far too long, and it's been a challenge, but it is now up and running. It is serving plant 1, and I thought this was a very appropriate picture for that.
Look at that beautiful rainbow.
Yeah,
Find it.
well, and thanks to the whole team for making that happen.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, so this is the standard kind of layout we've always done. And then also just to note that the updated budget is also posted on our website now. And so just to dive into the numbers, like I said, the numbers have moved some because of October actuals. What I'm going to do is, instead of going through it 100% like I did on the last presentation, I'm just going to kind of touch on the numbers that really changed. And then again, also the orange highlighted ones we talk about further on. So I'm going to skip those for now. And then again, to highlight anything that has a section number down at the bottom, there's more detail or further detail in that part of the budget. And then down, I also included a line so you can see what the draft budget totals were at the last presentation, so you can see how much it has changed. So as you can see, overall, it has not changed that much, roughly $200,000 from the last presentation overall. And the two yellows that I have is education. And this is a little bit higher than normal. The 24 projected is coming in right at 40. Typically, our education budget is about 42. But we do know Chris is going to do that trip, and then we have some other classes already scheduled. So that is a little bit higher than it has. And then the other big, which is, of course, our big jump is our new debt service that we're going to be taking on when we issue these 25 bonds for the water plant 1 treatment plant. And so that changed a little bit because I kind of tightened down on the interest rate. So that dropped that debt service there. And just let me know if you have any questions, but I'm just gonna kind of plow through these. So this goes into a little bit more detail. Admin expenses didn't change that much. Business projects did drop because we took out that telecom feasibility. Business services did not change that much. And then under outside services, we did drop engineering. If you remember, I had added 300,000 for CAD work. And why that's needed is we have a lot of building plans and building layouts that's all in paper form, and we need to get that digitized. So we had originally budgeted $300,000 in there to start in on that, but we did drop that down to 200. Personnel, we're pretty much, as far as 25, right where we were last time I presented. It is looking like that project manager will probably be in 25 and not in 24. So I moved that employee count over. So if Brian leaves and then we hire a project manager, it nets out to 0 there. And then just a reminder for the new positions we're looking at for 25, contract manager and electrician potentially for replacements, and then a brand new project manager. Capital budget. This is where our big dollars we're talking about. 24 did change a little bit with actuals. 25 budget did not change at all. We did not make any changes there. But the two highlighted, again, RW 38 is the plant one rebuild. And as you can see, that's starting to really tick up next year. And then the following several years, that'll be pretty significant. And then E22, that was our Groundhog Day project correlated with the picture on the front. And it's all working. There's still a lot of work to get this project closed and finalized and all of that. But as far as money going out, we're hoping we're close to the end, except for retainage. We will still have some retainage, but we think we're pretty much there on that one. Extraordinary maintenance. I did make a change a little bit. We did have all 3 substations were broken out. We talked about it in the Ferndale sub, since it is brand new, we figured any maintenance on that is going to be more just regular O&M. And so we took it out of extraordinary, but the refinery sub and the enterprise sub are getting old. And so we are going to have probably some extra maintenance on those too. Under the long-term debt, this is the same as it was presented last time. We're talking about 65 million in 2 bonds that we're issuing at the beginning of 2025, and then a follow-up in 2027. And I'm pretty sure that number will change depending on how the project goes, timing and probably dollar-wise, but right now it's at 50 million in 2027. Reserves, this was a topic we had talked about. The operating and capital have moved around a little bit with the increase and the little changes in expenses. Emergency, we're recommending just upping a little bit. And then just have a general additional reserve because we want to keep increasing our reserves, especially with this big debt service and all of that. We are going to be increasing. Right now, it's not increasing much, but we do want to increase it. And then just a little photo to kind of show, the numbers is the pie chart down at the bottom. That does not include any bond reserve we might be required. We don't know if that's going to be required yet. But right now, that's what those reserves look like. And then to break up my numbers, I found this picture. This is an old picture. This is plant 2 before it was remodeled. So that building in the back looks different now. But this is what the fish screens look like here at plant 2. I just thought it was probably good to see kind of a visual because we do talk about the fish screens, the frazzle ice and the blow offs and all of that. Just kind of give you a visual what those do look like. Okay, debt service coverage. This is a big one that's helping drive the rates to be increased. And what this is the basic measurement that our rating agencies and the people who are buying our bonds will be looking at. And that's how well can we cover that debt service. So we take our revenue minus our expenses, and what's left is how many times does that cover your current debt service? So in 2025, it drops to 1.08. We target when we do budgeting 1.5, but as you can see in 25 and also in 27, when we do such big bond issues, that does drop below what we want, but it quickly does go back up over that in the next year.
I got new glasses in that, but I still can't read these numbers.
Okay.
It's in the packet.
Is that 1.08 that you have circled?
Yes.
Okay.
And then it's 1.31 over in 2027.
Gotcha.
Which is the high mark, right?
The low mark.
I'm sorry. Right.
Yeah, that's when we hit the bottom. So what that's basically saying is those 2 years in our rates, we collect enough money to pay our bills, and that's it, and including debt service.
Gotcha.
I can't read it either, but memorize.
So Annette,
No.
Yep.
I do have a question. Did we incorporate the increase? How does Bonneville Power's rate increase? Because there's a significant rate increase coming from BPA. How does that affect us? And they also said there were transmission rate changes, increases, but they didn't really go into that at the Waputa meeting with the BPA Bonneville Power Administration's update and explanation. They didn't say how much the transmission rate changes would be. Can you explain a little bit about how BPA rates changes impact us?
Sure. Brian can, if he wants to, can talk in, but if you can wait one slide, I think that will help
Okay.
you.
Okay, thank you.
Brian, did you want to say something?
I'll wait till your next slide.
Okay. All right, so starting with industrial water here, originally at our first presentation, it was right about 30%. So this has dropped a little, but just because of that debt service and the increase in our debt service coverage, I haven't been able to drop it too much. So that is still a huge increase, and I hate doing that, but we have to do it in order to get this going. And then the other thing that's a change from last year is Gateway Pacific has turned over their fixed capital over to BP. So we will not be, Gateway Pacific is not a customer of ours anymore. And so those are now under BP. So next slide, let's talk Grandview first. Is,
On
yes?
that, it's a contract question, but it pertains, that contract has been assumed and reassigned
It's been
and
assigned, yeah.
did we need to do anything for that as commission?
It was their discretion.
Yeah, it's all signable by them.
Okay. Just, thank you.
Yeah, that's how the contracts are written at the dawn of time.
All right, thank you.
Sure. So the Grandview rates, as we all know, are really high, but it does not bring in a lot of revenue. So right now in 2025, we're looking at $330,000. That a lot is we lost that big customer, and right now consumption for 2024 is about 78% of normal or of last year. So as usage drops, unfortunately, costs do need to raise in order to cover the bills. Now, electric rates. So the electric rates is the lowest of the three, coming in about 4%, but that is also split between our one electric customer and the water utilities, since the electric does serve the water utilities. So the Phillips 66 increase is just about 1%. So Commissioner Legacy, what I wanted to show you is down at the bottom. This is how the electric is billed, is we have pass-through pieces. So we have the power, the transmission, and the taxes. We pass directly through to Phillips 66. So, and then we add on a general services charge, and that covers all of the PUD expenses, whether that's capital, whether that's O&M, labor, all of that. So if there's a big jump in power from BPA, either in power transmission, that's passed directly through to Phillips 66. Of our big, huge BPA bills that you see and sign off on every month, roughly about 95% of that is passed through, and only 5% is what we keep in-house to run our 2 water treatment plants.
Thank you.
Sure.
I do have a question on the Grandview.
Yeah.
Related to, so we lost a large customer. Is there the potential that they're going to come back?
My crystal ball doesn't know.
Was it a vacancy, or did they find water somewhere
They moved
else?
to Scotty.
It was a pet food company that closed the operation.
So
the
they're
building's still there.
the building's there, they aren't, it was a vacancy that occurred, not a loss of an actual customer.
I'm not sure
That's
that's
the
much
same
different.
thing.
Yeah,
Well,
they moved to Scotty County.
So they aren't getting water from somewhere else.
No,
They
we don't
didn't drill
we
it.
don't have an alternative source.
So if and when a new customer comes in, then into that building, then we might see that change. That was my question.
Yeah, and so, I mean, whenever you talk about food processing of any kind, it's water intensive. So if they lease that to somebody who has some other kind of manufacturing, it may not be anywhere near as water intensive as what was there in the first place, so. I mean, we just don't know. And I can't know if Healthy Pet owns that building, or if they leased the building and now the owner is searching for a tenant. I don't know. what the arrangement
We've
is.
lost 2 big customers at Grandview over the last several years, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay, and just some fun, pretty colors, but this is kind of what we're looking at forecast. For the 4 different, I've included broadband in there. As you can see, the next couple years, we're still going to be supporting broadband somewhat. Again, broadband's a ever-changing beast, so this could all change. But then we have the industrial, the electric, and the Grandview. The 2 things I wanted to comment on is the industrial water. You can see out in 28 and 29, it's looking like the rates are going a little higher right now because that's still out there a ways. I have that as that. Part of that's debt service, but part of that's kind of the unknown of how this project is going, but we can always bring those down if it looks like it's going to be, everything's going to work. And then also in Grandview, I wanted to explain that drop in 2028 in those expenses. We are at the end of our LUD and our bond related to our LUD. The bond that was associated with the 2007 LUD is ending, but the LUD assessments have not fully covered that. So in 26 and 27, the Grandview industry is going to have to pony up a little bit of money. But then in 28, because the LUD assessments are a year off, we won't have any debt service, but we will still get some LUD assessments. And so that debt service drops to almost nothing in 28 there. So, but then it pops back up. But so again, if those, depending on how Grandview expenses go, in 28 and 29, those rates could also drop.
As far as the broadband, is that option A or option B that we've got modeled?
I think what we've got modeled there is just completion of Point Roberts.
Okay.
And we're not
Which is
kind of betting on anything to be.
okay. Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's correct.
And did we get these updated slides?
I can
Sent-
print them off right now and pass them out.
Did we get them sent to us?
No, because I just finished them.
Thank you.
Email
Yeah.
would be great for.
So
If
the
we could
next
get-
step, I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, Annette, if we could get those emailed after the meeting, that'd be great too.
Sure.
Slides. Thank you.
Add me to that email as well, so I can put these in with the agenda packet for the public.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
okay.
and normally we post this on our website. And it's up there for a while.
We don't normally, well, the agenda, but we don't normally post presentations in the
Oh, I
past.
thought we posted this last year.
Okay. Anyway, the next step in our budget process will be at the first meeting in December, where we will have a public hearing and we will also pass the resolutions for the 25 budget. Any questions?
Question?
Yeah, so I just want to remark that, I want to get clarification from staff on this. We've had this year more input, is that fair to say, from both customers? Than we have in previous years and
No,
no,
no.
same, similar?
We had 0 input from customers. I mean, they came to the budget, some of them came to the budget meetings, but we had no comments.
And to be fair, we've had in-person presentations to Phillips 66 and BP with regards to our capital plan. And then I met personally with Puget and briefed them on the whole thing. So, and the feedback I got from Puget was, gosh, I get it. We're a utility too, costs are going up, you gotta recover them, that drives up rates. That kind of encapsulates Puget's response. And our assurance to all of our customers is we don't like to raise rates. We really don't. That's not what public water and public power is all about. And we do everything we can to keep these as reasonable as possible. And with an eye to the long term. You've got to rebuild stuff that's falling apart. But other than that, you keep your costs under control.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was referring to, Annette, is I know that those meetings occurred, and that's what I was wondering, but they're not directly related to the budget.
Well, and they didn't give us any actionable feedback at all, other than, we get it, we don't like it, but we understand.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'm just curious, how is everybody feeling about the level of public input from the customers, obviously, most importantly, that we've gotten, and is there is there anything that we can do in the next cycle to improve that further? It's just an open question.
You know, we've gone out and reached out to all of our Grandview customers, and I think, and that, on the Grandview call, we had 2 customers, and I think they were the same ones we get every year, right?
We've had them before, yes.
Yeah, and we used to get the Perrys all the time,
Yes, they weren't, the Perry Pallet did not attend.
yeah. So when the Perrys on Perry Power, we used to get them, but that was. We keep offering, we keep advertising, and it's just, I guess it's just not that big a deal to most of our customers.
Yeah.
People, as long as they're getting their water and the bill doesn't surprise them, generally speaking, people
I think that's it.
Just pay the bill. Yeah.
pay the bill
Sure.
and get, as long as the water keeps flowing, it's once the water stops flowing.
Yeah, and I have no issue, I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
that we talk about this, and one comment is that we are still hoping for some kind of a wonderful solution in collaboration with the county, the city of Ferndale, whatever, that puts Grandview on better footing, and, you know, or any other source of
That would be
mana.
a miracle.
Yes, I
We're still hoping
was
for a
actually
miracle.
gonna use the term mana, Chris, yeah, some kind of mana.
Yeah.
We continue to, but I just think I'm imagining positive things.
Yes, dream big, dreams are free. Okay, thank you, Annette.
Sure, thank you.
You don't need any action on this today?
No,
This was.
Perfect.
that'll be next meeting.
So now we'll move on to new business. We've got a special resolution for a special guy.
Yes, we do.
Are you gonna read that for us?
Well, normally,
I don't have a copy.
pretty sure I have a copy in here somewhere.
I can read it from my phone.
Would you guys like printed packets?
Yes, thank you.
Want me to read it, or?
Go ahead.
Okay.
There it is.
So I'd like to read to the commission proposed resolution number 863, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of PUD number 1, Whatcom County, the district, honoring Commissioner Todd Lagaste. Whereas Todd Lagaste volunteered and was appointed to serve as Commissioner of Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County from May 28th, 2024 until November 26th, or until vacated, 2024, to fill a vacant commission position. And whereas the commission and district staff are indebted to Mr. Lagaste for his willingness to serve the public and the district faithfully, with the interest of the district always foremost in his deliberations and official actions, and having given generously, very generously, of his time and talents. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Board of Commissioners of Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County do hereby express their sincere appreciation and the appreciation of the people of Whatcom County for Todd Lagaste's service to the district and for the privilege of having been associated with him on the commission. Be it further resolved that the members of this commission extend to Mr. Lagaste their sincere best wishes for the future, and be it further resolved that this resolution be recorded in the official minutes of this meeting and that a copy of it be delivered to Mr. Lagaste, adopted by the Board of Commissioners of the Public Utility District number 1 of Whatcom County at the regular meeting held this 26th day of November, 2024.
And Todd, you don't have to sign that resolution if it passes.
I just wanna, say that, maybe we should say the position that the district position that he filled.
We could, we're really sincerely thanking him for his service.
Yeah, no, just as a technical issue. Do you care? Okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to say is that, I can't imagine we could have made a better choice.
Yeah, no, we made a good choice,
Thank you.
even though you're a little annoying sometimes.
I like that little brother.
I love that part. I love that part.
Why? Why? Can't we do it something?
It has truly been my honor and my privilege, and I feel very humbled and grateful for the opportunity that you both extended to me, the chance that you both took on me. And I can't say thank you enough. It has been an amazing whirlwind of learning, huge amounts of learning. And I appreciate John Sitkin from CSD and the collegiality and patience that he's shown with explaining things to me. And I can't say thank you enough to Chris. I think that we are very fortunate in Whatcom County to have Chris. I think that the PUD is very fortunate to have Chris. And I understand that not everybody will agree, and sometimes communications can become strained. But what I really appreciate about everybody at the PUD that I have met and interacted with is that they are truly, I believe, operating in what they feel is the public's best interest. I have not always felt that in my public service other places. And, but I feel that sincerely here at the PUD. And I would just leave with, I hope there's a way to maintain this, and increase the family type atmosphere that we have, because I believe it's the best for the public. So, thank you.
Commissioners, in lieu of the fact that it needs to you for a second and a first, I will note an attestation on my behalf on this so that one of you can make the motion, the other one can second.
That's fine. This is an informal resolution, and the chair can always second if there's a lack of a second.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Okay, I will second.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain on this one.
So I just want to, one other thing is that we all here in this room have seen how Todd has behaved in this room and working with staff. But I want to share one thing that I've had a unique window into, and that's the impression Todd's made at Waputa and Energy Northwest. I've gotten many interactions with other PUD commissioners, staff at Waputa, staff at Energy Northwest. And it's all been positive. So Todd just hasn't done his job. He's represented Whatcom PUD well to the world outside, which matters to us. Like, so that legacy is going to leave a mark going forward too.
Legacy or legacy?
Legacy.
The legacy, okay.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I received feedback from a couple of commissioners that had phoned me, and we're excited to have you down at Waputa. And also at our board of directors meeting for Waputa, they had mentioned trying to, I think, do a write-in campaign.
There was a running joke about that, and it was the subject of a lot of questions of, well, why aren't you running, and how do we get you to stay in public power? And so, and as Liz Anderson, the executive director at Waputa, Washington PUD Association, said, you may try to leave, but you can never leave the family. So it's been an honor to be associated with this organization, and I'm very grateful again. So thank you both for the opportunity that you showed me and the chance you took on.
Thank you more time. We can arm wrestle that later.
No,
Okay, so moving on to commissioner reports. Anybody just bubbling up to share?
I got it.
Huh?
I'm gonna just pass. I got really,
No report?
no, yeah, I mean, we have plenty to do here.
Okay.
Still, so.
Yeah, I really don't have a report other than to say that, I attended the, state auditor's office exit, interview, and we have 18 years now of clean audits.
Yep.
Which is pretty amazing, for a public entity. So congrats to Annette and the team, on that. Good job.
Yeah.
And
well, then I have something, and this isn't a parting gift. I'm gonna wait till I'm not an official commissioner to provide any parting gift. But I did get us name tags. So, Commissioner Arnett, here's your magnetic back one that you are not a fan of, and your pin back
Oh,
one.
pin, perfect.
And Commissioner Deshmani, here are both of yours.
Thank you.
And then I will leave Commissioner Yuri's in a bag for him.
Oh, that was so nice of you.
Wonderful, thank you.
So one little parting gift, I was able to accomplish one thing while I was here.
if you can accomplish one thing in 6 months, public utility district, you're doing all right. Timelines are a little wonky here. Okay, so is that it for? Commissioner reports?
I will say, I did, attend the last WAPUDA meeting with, Tool. And, again, they were very appreciative. They even gave me a nice plaque that says for your service from 2024 to 2024, which I thought was quite awesome. And I will say that I think the PUD is very fortunate to have that relationship, and we should continue to maintain that. The benefits that we get from that are worth the cost. I looked at what the different utilities pay, and we're pretty fortunate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it is a worthwhile endeavor, so.
Indeed.
And I think Tool was was kind of the first person to start going to that again for our
Regularly, yeah.
organization,
Yeah.
that prior to his attendance there, we didn't regularly.
Mhm.
And I think that speaks volumes for the forward-looking direction that our commissioners show, so.
Yeah, I would say that, it's, you know, been an asset for all of us,
For sure.
because, you know, as new commissioners, and we're all relatively new compared to the history of the PUD, yeah, so.
Do we want to circle back to this broadband discussion
Before or after?
before or after public comments?
Well,
I would suggest that you make a quick opportunity for public comments, there's
Yeah.
likely not to be anybody, and then you can conclude with broadband.
Yeah, it doesn't, okay, so opportunity for public comment. I'll take a raise of hands if there's anybody online, because there is nobody in the room.
Let's give Rick a shout out, Rick Miracle.
Rick,
Yeah.
Rick,
Yeah,
it's good
welcome
to
back,
see you
Rick.
online, Rick. Doesn't look like he has anything to say.
Mike's online because he's waiting to get the
Yeah.
computer and phone back from
Okay.
me.
All right, well, let's wrap up this very
Broadband.
stressful conversation. Which, you know, Todd, I will lean into you saying, everybody here wants what's best, I think, for the public. We may disagree on how we get there, but I think you hit the nail on the head that we do have our best interest,
Yes.
you know, the best interest of the public at heart.
I believe that
Yeah.
sincerely.
So, just one more clarification. Is it, staff's strong opinion that if the PUD does a dark fiber application, option A, that we are, likely to fail?
Yeah, well, we are likely to score very low. And the only way that you would succeed would be either nobody else submits, or there's enough funding to fund every BSO in the state. And I don't think that either of those other outcomes are likely.
Right, because even if nobody submits, if we score low, that doesn't
That's it,
doesn't
exactly.
guarantee that we get money, because
Yeah.
they might spend that money in other areas
Exactly.
where they didn't have things.
In King County,
So,
Lewis
yes,
County, or wherever,
yes.
yeah.
Do it later. Really wanted to put my name tag on, I've been waiting for them for a while.
I'm okay with us, feeling like we're minor leaguers or even AAA ball and stepping up to the big leagues and taking a swing. And even if we struck out, we took a swing and we said we played in the majors.
Yeah,
And I understand, we might strike out. I'm okay with that because we tried.
I've never been wealthy enough to be a gambler. So.
Gambling
You
is a
know,
tax on those that are bad at math.
I've never,
Can I ride a bike?
I've never, you know, stepped up to the major leagues either. I'm a cautious human and try to make cautious decisions. I don't even sneak food into the movie theater. I try to play it safe, much to the chagrin of other people I attend movie theaters. So not you, you're the good one, yeah. So I'm not comfortable, stepping up to the plate with a grant application that is likely to score low and not be funded, I wanna play in the game, right? Like, I wanna, if I'll be third chair as long as I still get to play in the band, kinda, and still make some decisions and still be able to maybe receive some public benefit. And it's more important to me, that the public benefit is more important to me than the public ownership of this, in that regard. I do wanna ask though, we had talked about circling back to Point Roberts, and you're like, oh, this is really kind of a separate thing, but it kind of is not a completely separate thing.
So I mean,
So-
if you guys, if it's the will of the commission that we pursue a port-like IRU ourselves, and kind of that's the way we go, we can also, for BEAD,
Mhm.
we can do that for Point Roberts as well.
Can you,
Okay.
yeah, but let's not decide for today, that's okay, we can do it next week.
We're running out of time. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just got a timing question.
Or let's,
If you pursue a port-like IRU, we have to negotiate that. What is our timing in terms of the BEAD application to have the agreement completed in terms of funding and awards? Do we have to have it completed before we submit? Do we have to have it?
no, and so here's the
Okay,
timing.
that's just answer.
Yeah, but there are timing issues involved. For instance, it may very well be if we convert this to an IRU, that Whitby Tel doesn't submit their BEAD application at all. So we've got a little bit more leverage on an IRU if we can, hey, and by the way, this gets you everything you're looking for in your BEAD application without having to do a BEAD application. So there's some leverage there. So that's kind of my sense of.
I just was thinking, if we have to negotiate something with an ISP, that figuring that in 2 weeks, the world shuts down for the rest of the year. We're into January, probably be trying to finish an IRU and draft. And I didn't know where it had to be completed in the context of the application process and award. That was my timing concern.
We need to have letters back from the ISPs committing to the project, when we submit in January 31st of August.
Alright.
So the intent was to go out and start working with the ISPs and hopefully get those back mid to late December before everything shuts down.
You don't watch a lot of Hallmark movies.
No,
Candy Cane would be working on December 25th.
my wife watches everyone and
I think the other thing to consider here with regards to the idea of the PUD doing a IRU agreement with a private company is that the port may be doing their own with more favorable terms to a corporation, because that's what you're asking for, is to get more favorable terms than the IRU that the port has currently that we've seen. More favorable terms to us, to the public. And so if you're a private company, why would you want to go with the PUD's model when the port has one that puts more money, more ownership, more?
let's just be clear, the port and the PD can't both apply.
Right.
Only one public entity can apply.
For the same areas,
And so-
right?
So we are to that degree, in a unique position. So I just want to get on the question on scoring. It's 70, it's 60 points of the 100 points for the amount of funding requested, meaning the cost per pass and the affordability. And is the difference between the two approaches, option A, option B, show up in that, or does it show up elsewhere in the rubric?
That's why we gave you the entire packet, because that packet spells out in great detail what's in each one of those boxes. The thing itself doesn't get it. That includes discount structures, it includes how you break out your different levels of offering.
But I
there's an
understand,
enormous amount of
but
stuff
the
that's in
difference between the two, the dark fiber and the IRU lit fiber option shows up mostly obviously in those two criteria, right? In those first two criteria, meaning that you're saying that the lit fiber IRU pathway is a lower cost per pass, and the lit fiber approach is will provide a better affordable price to the end user.
Well, no, No, so what you have in there for the cost per pass has several different components. So one of them is, how much of that gets pushed off to the third party? How much of it ends up being owned by the public at the end that's subsidized by the grant itself, right? And then, I guess that's really the majority of it right there. So if you end up with, so for instance, an ISP could come in and say, hey, I'm gonna bid all of Whatcom County at $1,000 a pass. They don't have to justify that. That's just their bid. And they would win. They would get it all. And, it may be that they're actually coming in below cost. BEAD doesn't care. And then BEAD would reimburse, whatever the capital amount was of that, which would probably be $1,000.
I don't understand why my question is hard to answer. We just talked about you just said how, the, IRU, lit fiber model will score better than the dark fiber PUD ownership model. And I'm just asking that the two biggest criteria are minimum program outlay. Number one is just 40 points, and number two, 20 points is affordability, for the cost per pass. So it should show up in those two parameters.
It will show up there. And the other place that it shows up, if you read the whole NOFO, there is a whole section in there that talks about the qualifications of the bidder. And the fact that we are not an ISP, but we're relying on an ISP to supply those points, that's where a lot of these score a lot higher if it's just the ISP. Because they can claim, yeah, we've been doing this for 25 years, we've got, this history, we've got this rate structure, we've got, so on and so forth. And so there's some of those that don't get points, but they're go, no-go gates, and they get through them. The other thing that you'll see in there is that, the ISPs that are, like, we know Comcast is gonna go for one of the areas, as they say they are. They're gonna be donating all of their engineering as an in-kind. So, their cost per pass is gonna be very, very low, and they're not looking for public
Which
match
are
at all.
they working on?
Hmm?
Which area is Comcast
That's the
looking
one,
at?
the Glacier.
Glacier,
Yeah,
really?
the Sumas Glacier one. Yeah, that was one where they actually negotiated with the broadband office to redraw the boundaries of that area, so it fit what they wanted.
So, yeah, there's a section called fair labor practices, which is pre-existing, for pre-existing ISPs and new entrants. And for new entrants, you can still score well, based on that, and then also on, and other parameters, it still shows up. I mean, I'm just gonna be clear. This judgment, about how we'll score, I'm gonna agree with you, Chris, is a judgment for staff to make, not a commissioner to make. I, will even say that after reviewing the rubric, talking to people from other PUDs, they don't have the same opinion that we have about how we'll score. These, if like, I don't believe that this is this statement about scoring is very specific to our county and our staff. And, I'm just recognizing that, but that's what I have. Even though I've spent a lot of time, I still have to go on the recommendation of staff as it relates to the probability of success. Even though I don't understand.
Right, I know. We have one of the finest broadband guys in the room, the successful track record of grant writing. I've written grants for the Department of Commerce also. I would say that he's correct. We have low chances of getting up there, and I admire your dedication, and wanting what we want, and I want it too, and I just don't see a path forward, unfortunately. They're just gonna say no.
Sometimes you make them say no.
Yeah. My biggest concern is that we don't do this, that somebody else does put in for it. We lose out on $3.5 million of government funding, and I have to be the person on a commission that lost $3.5 million of grant funding, because we wanted to roll the dice.
But we're also not guaranteed to get it. We're also not, there's no guarantees that, again, that Comcast isn't gonna come in and underbid everybody, or another ISP or service provider. All we're doing is saying, this is what the cost would be for a publicly owned model. And there you go.
Who determines the score? It's the broadband office?
I,
Yeah, and if
And-
they do it the way they did it last time, Commissioner, they get a panel of experts together and they kind of sequester them and they go through. And I guess they have staff go through it first and make sure everything is, apples to apples, and then you have a panel that evaluates the whole thing.
And does NTIA second guess that?
Well, in this case, after the state makes decisions, then they have to forward it to NTIA for approval, and that's why.
Which is different than last one.
Yes, last time WISBO was the final answer. Yeah, I can't handicap this. I don't know if NTIA would look closely enough to say, well, wait, I disagree with, this.
Project 7 and
Yeah, I don't know if they're gonna do that.
Whatcom County.
Or if they're gonna look at the overall process for the state and say, okay, the process was good, we accept the results. Boom, I don't know what they're gonna do.
And we're not losing $3.5 million. What we're saying, what's happening is a different government entity is choosing to go to a different entity with that money, whether it's private or what. So we're not losing it.
well, we could literally build up an area where everything is abandoned. And that's happened in Point Roberts before.
Yeah, Delta Cable.
Yes, it's happened before. And just again, like this is my district, like these are the people I know, right? Like I grew up going to school with these families. Their kids have to cross 2 international borders just to come to school. I know their problems. Lisa Moeller knows their problems better than anybody. She served as the director of communications during the pandemic and had to try to get families their access to internet. Parents had to quit their jobs just so that they could find hotspots for their kids to go to school. So what we're talking about is like, yeah, oh, we're not gonna lose $3.5 million. They've done this before. This tale is as old as time for people in Point Roberts. You build something out, it gets abandoned. I don't think that these families can survive another pandemic, and we've got avian flu breathing down our necks. I mean, I think that the PUD can deploy this faster with the grant money that we have. We can take some control of an IRU model and make something work that's less of a roll of the dice. That's best for the public interest. That's my take. That's,
Sure.
yeah. I'm sticking to it.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a decision.
Thanks.
I'm gonna vote for 25-20-25 with the PUD IRU.
Okay, is that a motion? Do we have to make a
I'll make a
motion?
motion.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Thank you, commissioners, and we'll bring back the Point Roberts decision next time.
Thank you.
And that's all that we have to bring. It is after 10:30.
Yes, so we'll have to do the executive session of the next
Yeah.
meeting. Okay, so it is 10:38 and this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
And I still have.
And just so you know, commissioners, my schedule is, I do intend to be here for the meeting on the 10th. I'm hopefully having my meeting with Eddie right afterwards. And after that, I head back over the pass, and then I would be attending the 17th remotely. But I do have a remote case standing meeting for the Wyra Water adjudication at 10:30, so I would be leading the meeting at that